So I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves like I did yesterday because it seems to just waste time if I introduce them and then they reintroduce themselves. So everybody's going to have several minutes to go ahead and introduce themselves and tell you what they're working on and all of that. What we're doing with this panel is actually very simple. We've got people at different stages in the TransTech company life cycle. And so you're going to pick up on that based on people's introductions. And then I'm going to follow up with some questions. And we're going to take some questions from you, hopefully, if we have some time. And we'll go from there. So let me, let's see if we have a, I don't know where our clicker went. So let's start here, because I know, you have slides?
Yeah.
Okay, you have slides too. Do you have slides?
No slides.
All right. You're not just starting. I'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Punacha Machaya, founder of a company called Jio, J-I-Y-O, along with Deepak Chopra. So basically, I'm going to talk to you about why are we doing Jio? What is it? What is the story? So I started working with Deepak over 7 years ago, and 3 years ago, he came up with this vision which said, I want to reach 1 billion people to create a joyful, energetic body, a loving, compassionate heart, a restful but alert mind, and lightness of being. How do you do that? So we said, I worked at Motorola. I said, let's use mobile technology. I think we can do that. But the story behind why we created Jio is a bit more interesting is because when Nicole said, today job-related stress on women's health is as impactful as obesity and smoking. Out of every $4 spent on healthcare, $3 spent on chronic disease, and that's a huge burden on a system. So we said, let's create a platform which is like a service provider, really brings communities together. We basically, Nima just had a child, so it takes a village to bring up a child, but where is the village today? So we said, can we create online well-being communities which are both online and offline? And that's really why we're doing what we're doing. The second thing to look at the vision of Jio is to really look at health and wellness holistically. Yoga and six-pack abs is probably a Western construct. Most Indian yogis don't have six-pack abs, so I can pass away for a yogi. But the reason I talk about today from a quantified self perspective or a tech perspective, we are so obsessed with data and metrics that we forget about experience, right? Nobody really cares about how many steps or what is, but what's experience, end of the day? So when we start looking at health and wellness or well-being, we go back and look at the 10 facets of well-being: intention, mind-body connection, nutrition, movement, sleep, eliminating toxicity, people, substance, and place, love and relationships, youthful mind and creativity, career, and finance. When these 10 facets of well-being kind of come together, then you truly have well-being in your life. You might have six-pack abs, but if you don't have love in your life, there's no well-being. So what we wanted to do is to create a platform which kind of brings together the right content, the right service provider, and the right product. Example today, let's say you took a flight from India to here, which I did. It basically, the right content for me right now is how do I regulate my biorhythm, my circadian rhythm, a good article on that. Maybe a good yoga stretch or a breathing technique. Maybe what's a good nutrition supplement. Or maybe if I really have insomnia, who's the best person I can talk to? Or who is like me, who's going through something like this? When people go through, or women go through postpartum depression or whatever, it is not about the doctor they talk to. It's not even their friends. It's somebody who's going through it. So it's more than like, who's like me, right? That's the second aspect. The last one which I want to leave with you all is, so what can we do about this? So what we started looking at is that, how do we reinvent our body, our well-being? And so we have 7 steps to reinventing the human body. The first one, really understanding that your body is not a structure, it's a process. Your entire human body regenerates. Every 10 years, your skeletal system, every couple of hours, the cells in your stomach, every week, your skin. So it's not a structure, it's basically a process. The second thing, the body is an energy field, right? It's an information field. The third thing is that we know that gene expression is directly related and managed by emotions, your environment, your feelings, so you can actually change it. That's epigenetics. The fourth one is you can optimize the brain. You have a lot of technology today to look at spiritual well-being, emotional well-being. And the fifth, that's called neuroplasticity. The fifth one is looking at what we call 5% of disease-related gene mutations are fully penetrant. That means you can completely change your lifestyle your genes don't control your lifestyle. It's basically your lifestyle modification. So look at chronic disease today. It can be managed with lifestyle modification. Unless you're the BRCA1 gene like Angelina Jolie, then you really have to have clinical intervention. But 95% of diseases today are not fully penetrant. The sixth one is that your perception of time can be changed. Time is a man-made construct, right? So your chronological age and your biological age can be basically understood. And the last one is that awareness is the key to transformation. So our goal today is to use technology and create an ecosystem to really bring about awareness in people. Because if you basically have technology today which tells you, by the way, Panacha, on the days you sleep less than 3 hours, these are the meetings you had, how much time you spent on the road, the temperature and the UV index, this is what the pollution levels were. If you understand correlation, you can then figure out the causation. Half the time, we don't know what happens with us. So from our perspective, it's about creating awareness. And that's really the vision of Jayo. Thank you. I'm Indian, I speak fast, so any questions, ask me later.
That's great. Thank you very much, Panacha. Okay, let's, so I think we'll do Nima's slides next. We'll just sort of go this way to let the AV guys have a heads up.
Sure.
Here's the clicker. You may need to stand up in order to see the screens there.
Okay.
So you can,
Can I borrow that? Thank you. Okay.
I think you have a wife. You have a lapel
Oh, there we
mic.
go. Oh, I don't need it. Oh, perfect. Right, yeah. Forgot. Nice to see you all, some familiar faces. I am honored to be in this community. I feel like this is really a set of people that are early adopters and seeing and excited about what's to come and help shape that. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing at Spire. So what sits at the root of Spire's contribution is to unlock the potential of greater awareness and skill and fluency with our breath. Breathing, as we all know, is key to resilience, key to attention training, key to so many things. We know that from perhaps meditative practices and such, but it is also still being studied and improved upon as far as how we understand the impact of our breathing in Western science. And we are attempting, and I think doing so, unlocking that and making that increasingly practical and usable for everyday life. So, I can barely see that. It's small, that's fine. So we really see breathing as kind of like the gas and brake pedals for our mind, but it also modulates our heart rate variability, our medulla activation, the vagus activation. So however you look at it, it just sits at that precipice between the subconscious and the conscious, acting as a kind of way in to the body that's immediately actionable. I think that's really key to Spire is actionability. So when it comes to transformative technologies, we have emotionally intense experiences of transformation. And then we also have that moment in line at Starbucks when you took a deep breath and had a completely different qualitative interaction with the person at the register. And that really encompasses the entire spectrum of transformation. We look at transformation as those small moments as well as the really visceral, intense ones. So looks can be deceiving. Very simple, it's just our breathing, but incredibly powerful and sitting at the kind of cutting edge of psychophysiological health. In particular, you often think about the rate of how fast you're breathing, the rate of respiration. You're breathing fast. Is it kind of this anxious breathing? Is it very slow? But there's another incredibly important characteristic to our respiration, and that's called respiratory stability. So stability of mind maps to our respiratory stability. And these two characteristics, the rate and the stability, help Spire understand what's happening with your state of mind and help you train yourself to improve in those everyday life situations, as well as exercises and practices like meditation. So, case in point, this is real Spire data from the same amount of time. This is a 2-minute time period. Same person, 3 different activities. The top, checking email at a laptop. The middle, reading a magazine. the third meditation. So the thing to notice is those two characteristics are what's changing, the rate and the stability, right? And what's so powerful about the breathing is that it's very easy to understand. Just like it's very easy to understand, hey, I need to get up and move sometimes in order to improve my well-being and my health. That ease of understanding and application is key to behavior change. So we have launched, if you haven't heard of Spire, it's actually available in Apple stores. So in terms of the life cycle of companies in transformative technology, we've kind of passed the startup phase. I mean, so we're still a startup, but have launched, have made inroads in distribution channels. In fact, with Apple, we actually made our international exposure. Now Spire is available really anywhere that Apple stores are, and in multiple languages. So what does Spire do? It is a small stone that you clip to a bra or to your waist. It does not require skin contact. What's happening is that as you're breathing, you're getting what's called thoracic excursion. Really, your lungs are expanding and contracting. So Spire is measuring that, as well as, of course, your steps. So by that, it's able to track things like tense breathing, focused or concentration, calm relaxation, and of course, steps and sedentariness. So it's really looking at mind and body. Now, what does it do? Of course, it notifies you. And actually, there's a couple announcements I want to make today to that end. But it's giving you the smallest piece of information, I like to call the smallest behavior that matters, the SBTM, that breath in that moment when it matters most, in order to make lasting and impactful change. So as far as the app, it offers a combination of training, that's good guidance, as well as helping you bring out the context from what was happening in your day. Where were you? What were you doing? It looks at your calendar to help build a more rich map of understanding your patterns. So yes, it looks at your location, your calendar, even photos you took around that time to help you identify those patterns over time. What day do you normally get stressed, and who are you with, and so on. There are two features that we've recently released that if you haven't used Spire yet, you might be interesting to know. First is that we have what are called custom vibrations. So according to the notification, maybe you just had a long period of calm, or you were just concentrated for 45 minutes, or you happen to be tense, it will vibrate in different ways according to that alert, which sounds very simple, but turns out to be really useful. And then the second is weekly reports. And now you can gauge your progress over time and kind of look at this very holistic picture of your well-being and gauge it compared to other people in the Spire community as well. How focused are you compared to the thousands of other people that are using Spire? It's very interesting. People wanted to know. So we include that in the weekly reports. As I mentioned, it's available at Apple stores, and we've had to really wrestle with things like Amazon stores and reviews and stars and all that kind of stuff. So really getting this out from this community into all over the country, all over the world, and that's very much what we work on every day. It's also built for research. We have a lot of researchers that use Spire. Every breath, every step is on the back end, and so you can go back and access that data. We have an API. It's pretty preliminary right now, but working with us, you're able to get everything. We just did a study with about 10% of LinkedIn's US population, where we found that wearing Spire was reducing stress, increasing feelings of well-being over time. This is over a month period, reducing anxiety and worry, increasing the amount of calm, and actually increasing the amount of focus state. So pretty exciting stuff. That's really the beginning and the first study of its kind that was able to be done in such a widespread area of the population using wearables. So that's Spire. We don't have a table, actually. Unfortunately, I really wanted to, but just wasn't able to make it happen logistically this time. But if you're interested in trying it or learning more, just find me after the panel. Thank you so much for your time.
And incidentally, I have a little Spire on right now. I've got my Spire Rohan, do you have slides?
Your slides? Okay.
Hi guys, I'm Rohan. I'm the founder of Leaf Therapeutics, and it's really good to be here. I think I have the feeling like I've met maybe half of you already, and for the other half, I think I'm really glad to be here and to actually listen to some of your feedback. We'll talk a little bit about the Leaf, but I guess what I'd like to really do is be more real with you, rather than kind of give you a pitch, to actually have a conversation. So I would ask you to, after the talk, please come up, and if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them and hear your feedback as well. So we're a little bit earlier than a lot of the other companies here. We just sort of soft launched. You can try Leaf actually in the demo room after the talk. But I wanted to talk about why I got interested in this space to begin with, and kind of share a little bit about where I'm coming from. So I actually had anxiety, and I still do a little bit as a kid. And growing up, that was a very difficult thing for me to kind of deal with. At some point, I found a book on meditation, and that totally changed my life. And so I've spent my entire life since then trying to understand what happened to me, what changed in the brain, why was I able to sort of shift my relationship with my thoughts and start this journey that so many of us are on towards greater well-being and more emotional, less stress and more emotional transcendence in a way. So that journey initially started in neuroscience labs. So I started at Stanford and at Harvard studying mindfulness and the brain. So what changes in long-term meditators when they've done hundreds and thousands of hours of meditation. And so this is some of the work we did at Harvard. We looked at not only long-term meditators, but also people who had just kind of been introduced to mindfulness for the first time and done an 8-week MBSR, or a mindfulness-based stress reduction course. And what we saw was that there were cortical changes in the brain. So changes in thickness, changes in the way the brain is wired. Clearly something's happening, which is kind of interesting. And the whole body of evidence in science now, as a lot of you are familiar, is pointing towards all kinds of real health benefits towards these practices that have been around for thousands of years, right? And now we're just sort of rediscovering them with science. But for me, I realized that just studying something actually wasn't changing how I felt at all. Learning about something intellectually doesn't really help you experience it or live it. And so I bought a one-way ticket to the Himalayan mountains. I quit my lab job, and I thought I was going to go find those monks and discover for myself what mindfulness was about and really feel it and experience it. So I packed up my backpack with a bunch of brainwave sensing equipment and sensors, a laptop, and I started hiking through the Himalayan mountains, wandering from monastery to monastery, meeting monks, living with them in the caves. And these are some of the people that I met on my journeys. Really beautiful people, and the entire experience sort of changed me in a really deep way. And eventually, I kind of came back from the mountain and re-entered society, and we turned some of what we had learned, not only in the lab but also directly through our own personal experience about mindfulness, into a new product, which is called the Leaf. So the Leaf is a wearable patch. I hesitate to flash you all, but I will. So you can kind of see here. Woo! It is. Thank you. So the Leaf is a wearable patch. It measures heart rate variability through ECG, and also breathing. And it does that with the goal of making you more aware of what's happening inside your body, and also giving you a lever to kind of change that. And so I won't spend too much time talking about the device, but it's very thin. It's a lightweight kind of patch. Our first 150 are being released for Christmas of this year. And we're now taking pre-orders, so there's still a couple left if you want a stocking stuffer. And the device itself is, as I mentioned, very high accuracy. It's ECG, and it feeds back your heartbeat or your heart rate variability pattern to you in real time through a pattern of haptics. And what that allows you to do is sort of have a additional layer in the world. I think David Eagleman yesterday was talking about this idea of building new senses, and that's kind of what the Leaf is. It allows you to feel yourself, to really have a heightened sense of mindfulness, and do biofeedback in real time, without needing to disengage from the world around you. So I'm actually doing it now, which is kind of helping calm me down in this somewhat stressful situation. And that's kind of that's a little bit out the leaf, so I would encourage you to come try it. We've started initial pilots with UCSF and Stanford clinicians. Doctors seem to really love it. It seems to help not only patients, but also doctors, psychologists, and therapists sort of keep track of patients. These are healers, right? In ancient times, perhaps a psychologist would be a sage, and so these are people who are really thinking about how to improve well-being, and they found a lot of utility in the early prototypes as well. And that's really it. Come by and see our booth. I'm Rohan, and I'm looking forward to talking to you.
And Debbie Rosman from HeartMath.
Thank you. I can see. I guess I can. Can you scroll it back? Or I don't. Does it only go forward? There we go. All right. How many of you have heard of HeartMath? I guess I should ask, how many of you have not heard of HeartMath? Just a few in the back. Okay. So I was asked to be on the panel as one of the companies that has, let me back up a little, these lights are awfully bright. One of the companies that actually is considered one of the founders of the whole field of transformative technology. And we really started out, and I was asked to also speak about what have we learned, where's it going, how can we serve and facilitate you? And you know, we started with a vision, we started with a mission, we started with really wanting to lift consciousness on the planet, in ourselves and in each other, and what would be the most effective way to do that. So we started as a research institute researching how the heart, brain, nervous system talk with each other, and how might all that link us with our higher capacities, with our soul or spirit or larger self in some way. So we have the nonprofit Research Institute of HeartMath. And then as we began to discover how these pathways work and develop techniques and tools for people to utilize them and access their inner technology, so to speak, then we developed training programs, and we developed coaching programs and certification programs, and we started a for-profit to be able to work with corporations and raise funds to be able to take what we learn and develop inner technologies and outer technologies, how they work together. So many of you who know HeartMath, and I'm not going to go through all our technologies, but we really discovered that heart rate variability was a key biomarker for helping us learn self-regulation. And the intelligent management of our energies is at the core of all the wonderful work we're all doing. And I think it's amazing to me the difference between last year and the new technologies that are out. This year, there's so many more. And there's going to be a quantum leap, I believe, every year as people realize that we have to regulate our energies, we have to regulate our emotions, our thoughts to be able to access our larger self, our higher capacities, and that humanity needs this if we're ever going to solve our physical health, social problems, and spiritual problems. So HeartMath, we are in the process of a regeneration at this point in time with how do we serve humanity best now? And this is our new logo of HeartMath. And what I wanted to do is just have you take one look at this little picture, because those of you who are familiar with HeartMath know that we looked at heart rate variability and probably helped a lot of people realize that processing of emotion and mind isn't just top down. It's not just the brain telling the heart what to do. The whole body, and specifically the heart, is sending information to the brain by 4 different pathways, including the vagal nerve, telling the brain how the body feels. And the brain is a pattern matching organ responding to the signals from the heart. And we knew this intuitively because all of us who helped Doc Childrey, our founder, start HeartMath, came there because we knew we wanted to awaken the heart, we wanted to grow spiritually, we were all long-time meditators, we wanted to serve the world, and what would be the most effective way? And you know, we've always looked at the heart as a key driver for awakening, for realization. But finding that it's a key aspect for energy management, for self-regulation, was really interesting because as the heart is sending input to the thalamus, to the amygdala, and the core cells of the amygdala actually synchronize to the heartbeat. So as we are learning to change the pattern of our heart rhythm or our heart rate variability, and if we can power up that change, we can power up the changes in the brain. So when we're feeling stress, frustration, anxiety, anger, fear, all the stressful emotions, it creates a really jagged pattern, as you can see on the right side of the heart rate variability pattern. And that incoherent waveform, that signal is sent to the brain and desynchronizes cortical function. We can't have our higher consciousness available to us when we're in those states. When we can shift the heart rhythm pattern to a smooth sine wave-like coherent rhythm where the autonomic nervous system branches are actually entrained, and we're sending that harmonious signal to the brain, and then the brain synchronizes its cortical information. We have more access to our higher capacities, our frontal lobes, our intuition, our bigger picture thinking. So we went right to the heart of the matter, no pun intended, and tried to see how do we help people shift pattern quickly in the moment. And that's where heart rate variability feedback and biofeedback became just a key indicator of that. And we did a lot of research and a lot of work in multiple markets. We did not do what your investors will all tell you to do, focus on one market and build that. We were trying to seed the understanding and research how the applications of this would be in multiple markets, from schools to corporate performance to sports performance. This was like the beginning part of a zone training for a lot of athletes, for health professionals, for doctors, teachers, for anybody who wanted to address stress because we knew that problem was going to be growing, or wanted to improve performance and higher capacities of their cognitive function or improve their meditation. So this was a key aspect that informed our training programs, that informed our technology development, and you could say this is our new book, came out a few months ago, Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart. And all along, collectively with our core team, we were getting in this heart coherent state and accessing our individual and collective intuition. What would be the highest best for ourselves, for each other, for the whole? And we look at that quality of when the heart and brain are in sync and we have access to our higher capacities, we have more access to intuition, and as research is showing, to actually a field of information that's not bound by time and space, another dimension. And that's where the whole planet is waking up to and is heading. And you're all part of facilitating that. I just want to acknowledge and honor you, whatever your heart is guiding you to do in this whole transformational field. Listen to it deeply, get in sync, get your system in sync so you can follow those signals and collaborate and co-create and bring in this heart intelligence. As we have seen from our research and our own meditations and collective realization, it is the next level of human evolution. You have to bring the core values of the heart, the love, the care, the compassion, the appreciation, the kindness, the qualities of spirit that are what make us happy and nurture us. And how do we shift back to them when we get out, when we get stressed and frustrated? How do we power up our physiology to facilitate our meditations, to facilitate that process of alignment? And that's what we call heart intelligence, as the flow of intuitive information that comes to us when our mind, emotions, nervous system, heart, brain, body are synchronized and in coherent alignment. So coherence, individual coherence, is defined by that coherent heart rhythm synchronizing the brain functions. Social coherence, our relationships with each other that have a coherent, energetic, harmonious pattern, and how do we get back to it when we get out. And global coherence is really the mission of HeartMath. That's really where we're headed. We've developed a whole ecosystem over 20 years, you can imagine, of training programs, coaching, technologies. And now the hardware is going to be everywhere. You're all creating this wonderful assistive hardware. And we're still evolving ours as well, but we're moving more into what's the next way HeartMath can best serve. How can we best serve you and the globe? And one of the ways we can best serve is through the interconnectivity research we're doing now and showing how we are all so incredibly connected, more than we know or think, but it needs some science to prove that to people. And that's a lot of what we're working on now. One of the things we're also going to be doing with our new branding is building community more. This is our heart cloud, our M-Wave devices, our inner balance sensor for iOS. All of our technology goes into the heart cloud, which gives you points and rewards and gamification, ways you can even move into seeing what collective coherence would be. We're working on that. We have a patented algorithm on group coherence. How do we take that and help facilitate every one of you? How do we all partner together? Because we are connected. We have to follow your heart. It's not a conceptual thing. It's where the resonances and the synchronicities are. And as we get in that heart intelligent, coherent state, the synchronicities start to create and build. And I'm sure you're all experiencing that more and more. There's a grand shift going on, and it's very exciting that we're all drawn together. So how do we build community out of that that is collaborative, co-creative, and can really begin to serve people? This is our new Bluetooth low energy mobile sensor and our new box, our new brand. And it will be out soon. It took a long time before we could make a Bluetooth sensor, because to look at heart rate variability and then look at heart rate variability coherence and give really accurate feedback, because there's 4 challenge levels, so you really can progress in this heart, brain, nervous system alignment. That's one of our core values, is just have very high standards. There's a lot of HRV devices coming out now that aren't that way. And we won't compromise that integrity. But now we'll be bringing it out soon. We work with Android. We have not had an Android inner balance device, and Punach's team in India is developing the Android app for us, and we're very excited about that. So part of our mission in certifying all these HeartMath certified trainers, HeartMath coach mentors, people who want to share the whole gamut of HeartMath tools and techniques that help you get into heart rhythm coherence for various applications, from decision making to coherent communication to basically radiating heart to the planet from that more loving kindness but heart coherent state. We have a trainer in Syria. Actually, he's Arabic, but he's training in the Syrian refugee camps in Lebanon. And he's transferred the HeartMath training materials into Arabic, and he's been working with parents and tortured adults who've come back to these camps, escaped, and children. And I had no idea, I mean, I know there was tremendous stress, but one of the biggest problems children have in these tents where families are stuck together, and millions of them in Lebanon, these refugee camps, is bedwetting. Urinary incontinence due to all the trauma and fear. And of course, that's a huge stressor on the family. So he taught the HeartMath technology and tools to, we have an early Heart Smarts program, to these children. And this picture of one of them just got me. You can see the shift, and 800 children have stopped bedwetting from practicing just a little bit of how to shift back to the heart and get into that state and release the traumas and the fears and the amygdala and move more into who they really are. So
Debbie, I've got to leave some time for questions here.
I'm done.
All right, good.
Thank you.
All right, real quick, I'm just going to ask you all to answer a couple of questions real quick, and then I want to get to the audience. So first of all, what would you say, this is a fantastic crowd, right? It's filling in as it gets later and people wake up. They're more on my schedule, so welcome to my people. Who are now coming. There's a huge amount of capability in this room, right? All kinds of stuff, from business to tech to you name it. Right? So what I'd like very succinctly to hear from each one of you is, what's the major problem that you're facing right now in terms of the spread and adoption of your technology, and what would help you to, get beyond that hurdle? We'll just go sort of in this order.
Well, first of all, I wanted to honor your talk and just the pioneering work that you guys have done. Thank you. I think that, I mean, there's challenges in every part of this endeavor that we're undertaking. The one that's top of mind the most is that, I mean, we have these sensors, these algorithms, this feedback, interactive modalities, and then we have messaging, communicating the benefits and kind of like these are like kind of like the pieces. And the one that we are finding that we could use some interesting insight from this community is some additional standardization or transparency and sharing of best practices around how to interpret the data. There's so much variety in how to interpret the data, and everyone is kind of like espousing their own technique, which is great. It kind of needs to happen, but maybe what would be really helpful is if there was a lot of N-of-1 experimentation or a lot of encapsulation and sharing of methodologies for interpreting the data. I know this is a pretty technical answer to the question, but I think that's the biggest kind of like black box that I think that we could use from this audience. If you have any kind of insight into hacking and so on, like maybe take it from analyzing the data and interpreting it to sharing out the different types of ways you could give feedback and the subsequent impact of that feedback. That would be. I'm realizing that the answer is pretty obtuse and complicated, but that is I think the thing that is coming up for me the most. I mean, there's challenges all over. The other big one is messaging. There's just, and it's not even like the kind of thing that it's like, only this community is going to understand these things. It's actually not that, because like Poonacha said, we're all processes, so we are all so dynamic. Even the way that we are understanding the feedback and the messaging is going to change over time and in the course of our day. So messaging is really tricky and important, and I don't know exactly how this community could help us there, but
They can.
But they can. They'll figure out a way.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think from our perspective, it's behavior change. We all know that we should breathe, right? Otherwise, if we don't breathe, there's a problem. We all know that we should eat well. We all know we should meditate. Deborah's been, and from a technology perspective, we are interconnected with all the different technology. With HeartMath, we're working for a long time. But why is behavior change so hard? I mean, that's really the hard problem. I think from a gyro perspective, we are constantly looking at context, right? Don't tell me something when it's contextually right. So when content meets context, behavior change happens. So we're always looking for better algorithms, better AI engines. I call it the cold start problem. Today when you download Jaya, for the next 30 days, it tries to understand who you are. Do you like yoga? Do you like Tai Chi? What do you like? Everybody's well-being is as unique as a fingerprint. So it's not about just recommending yoga is good for you or even meditation. There's different techniques. So what is right? So finding out what's right. The second thing which I look at, I call it the 5P problem, right? The first is chronic. We know chronic disease is preventable. I call it the first one is that we can predict. Once you can predict, you can prevent. The third P is that we know to personalize it. The fourth P is set up a process. And the fifth P is get them to participate, right? For you to execute these 5 Ps, we need to have a very, very sophisticated algorithm to understand behavior. And Fogg talks about B is equal to MAT, right? Behavior is equal to motivation, ability, and trigger at an instance of time. Understanding how to trigger is really the hard problem for us. So I think we're really looking to collaborate with this technology, working with devices, looking with algorithms, working with analytics to really understand how do you trigger the right moment when the person is most acceptable to kind of do this change, right? What's a good time to meditate? Different for different people, right? Find the right context. So that's really what we are looking at.
Thank you. Ron?
I think the largest challenge that we're facing now is probably very similar to the challenges that everybody in the audience is facing. We know intuitively and maybe even intellectually that mindfulness practice, that meditation helps us, that there are certain ways of being that allow us to live more in our fullness and really blossom in the ways that feel right. But how do we do that in this world as it exists now? How do we do that in our job with our boss, right? How do we do that with our family? And in the real nitty-gritty, I think, is where the rubber hits the road. And I think part of what we're really interested in with our device, the Leaf, because it's so wearable and it's kind of in the background, and of course, the HeartMath and Inspire are very similar in this way. How do we really and truly integrate all these things that we are driving towards into what is our day-to-day? And I think that's something that I'd love to actually learn from you guys. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your input.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay. For HeartMath, I think it's because we have seeded multiple markets, a lot of them, more than I can even say here, and have penetrated, and those seeds have sprouted, and it's like, look at it like leaven in bread. And now with all the new technologies, hardware technologies coming out, and we're moving much more into the new capabilities of platforms and software as a service and subscriptions, and kind of taking the HeartMath ecosystem and putting it together into a pathway for people from the entry into the different levels that they can move through to accelerate their own growth and to serve others. I think for us, it's probably having more help thinking through that ecosystem and that pathway, and how does it all come together, and what is the way to take our new Add Heart brand and add heart to this planet. And that's our mission, is to create an Add Heart movement, and want to invite all of you to co-create that with us.
Awesome. Okay, I'm coming out there. Who's got some questions? I'm going to go with you first. I'm going to limit myself to just one question to get you in here.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for everything that you're building. So something that's super wild with this brave world of betterment that we're going towards is really knowing ourselves, a deepening. So traditionally, we found that these types of insights that you guys are now providing for the world and the planet lived in a warfighter arena. So governments would provide and build and research tools, techniques, and systems to understand their warfighter and improve the people who protect the nation. So now that you're working in a system of data and collection and monitoring and holding data for a lot of people for things that's quite insecure, because it's the most secure thing, which is ourselves, who's that security, right? So now that we have a deeper knowing of us, how are you guys working? Is there an alliance of a global security force? How are you guys going to protect your users?
I'm sure my esteemed panel will answer this, but I think there's a couple of shifts going on. One is, I think with blockchain, if you look at the whole thing, I think anything dealing with security is getting disaggregated. It's not centralized, it's going to be distributed. I think also from our perspective, I think the control's always with the individual. I think as we go forward, Elon Musk put all his IP in the public domain to basically say the whole issue of energy is so big, let everybody collaborate. We are finding a big shift in health and wellness. We're actually looking at opening up Gyro's data to basically help research. So we see, as we go forward into the future, security is a huge thing. More than being centralized, it's going to get distributed. I think there's a certain amount of consciousness each company will have to enforce. So it's not going to be, I always believe that personal transformation leads to societal well-being. It's not a standard body, it's each technology really building it within themselves.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sure. Well, just really quickly, I think that's a great question. We're still trying to figure out how to do it in the right way. For now, what we've implemented, so from the leaf to the phone, your data is encrypted. From the phone to the server, your data is encrypted. The entire thing is HIPAA compliant, which is kind of like the standard medical bar for protecting patient privacy. All these tools, I think we have an obligation not to sort of sell out our users in terms of the data and what can be most easily monetized. This comes, I think, from a place of self-empowerment. So I think if we are able to keep that in mind and really respect users as the primary purpose of what we're doing in the first place, and I think a lot of your questions and concerns around privacy and data kind of take care of themselves. That's my perspective. Anybody, do you want to?
Just very quickly, the trend that we see is like consumer and medical kind of having some more overlap, and we step into that wholeheartedly, and that's kind of like the best we can do, because a lot of people have thought a lot about security when it comes to medical applications. So rather than reinvent the wheel, kind of like what Rowan was talking, is use what best practices are there, and that's what we do.
Okay, next question.
There are a lot of products on the market currently, and right in this room, there's people caring about high quality products. How do we deal with China and the proliferation of cheap, low quality products in the sense of not being able to provide the quality back, where the wellness drops off and it affects the rest of the industry?
I would say that you're not going to be able to deal with it. People are going to gather in tribes and community and feedback and viral, what goes viral, or the customer are going to review the products. And they're going to say this works or this doesn't work, because there's going to be more and more of that. And I think if we just accept that, then we can realize that whatever is coming out is going to have good credibility through the research and through what the public and what the experts say about the quality or the validity of a product. I mean, we're finding that right now with HRV products just burgeoning everywhere, and some very good, or sensors, some that are not reliable at all. And that's just part of the state of a new industry. And I think it's going to shake out as people really look for what's the benefits. Is it delivering the benefit that it's promising or that I need?
I have to agree with Deborah. I think there was going to be always proliferation of products, but what to find its own level, right? Today I was in telecom, and today Motorola and Nokia are not there, almost. Apple's there. I think as you go through, longevity is all about delivering value. It can come any part of the world. It really doesn't have to be. As long as it delivers value, it'll sustain. It could be from China, it could be from Myanmar. But I think I think that's going to happen. I think longevity is going to be only based on value. So until then, there'll be a lot of noise. Like Deborah said, there's so many HRVs, but HeartMath 20 years, right? Longevity.
Let me ask real quick, is Jack Chen in here? I want to get your perspective on this question as well. Did you hear that question? I'm sure you've got a contrarian perspective, I think, to this. So let's.
Just want to make sure that.
Well, I think a new speaker was sleeping. One thing I'm interested in learning is that, how do you come to this conclusion that Chinese products, a different person, okay. No, not a different person. Okay, very good, very good. Very good, very good. Okay. Well, I think this is a part of the innovation that, you have to deal with, right? I remember about 20 years ago when I first came to the United States, and, a friend told me that I saw so many graffiti here, lots of those graffiti, so why don't, the police arrest them? You know, actually, American next to this guy was saying that, well, that's the cost of freedom. You know, if you arrest everybody, then nobody say anything. Okay, but on the other hand, if you see what's happening in Japan, about 30 years ago, they sent all kind of like cheap cars to the United States. I'm sure a lot of people will complain that, wow, I mean, these cars are not well built, and it's killing a lot of people. But see what's happening now. They make Lexus, they make some of the best cars. I think what's happening in China is that, you know, there's enormous of entrepreneurial drive there, right? You know, they make all kind of cheap product initially, but eventually, those lower quality product will be obsolete, and the same company will learn how to make a better product. I think that's a driving force, actually, for the innovation instead of, you know, the disruption. Of course, it disrupts, but it also puts pressure for the company making great products, saying that, okay, you have to lower your price, right, in order to compete. So I think, you know, it's two sides of a coin.
I'm going to take we're going to go over a little bit. I'm going to take one more question here from Jonathan.
First, I'd like to know the 5 Ps that you mentioned. I thought that was great. But my second question is, as somebody who's involved in messaging about TransTech, have any of you pursued celebrity endorsements? Because we live in the culture that is so celebrity-focused. And do you find that, or do you think it would be helpful to create those associations? Because I know a bunch of those people, and it seems like in order to create more adoption, we need the football players, the actors and actresses wearing a leaf or a heart math and talking about it. What do you think about that?
So very quickly, I'll let Deborah answer the second part. I think the 5 Ps are chronic disease is firstly predictable. Take a HRA, you can predict it. Once you can predict it, you can prevent it. Once you can, if you know what's preventable, establish a personalized routine for you. 4th one is set up a process. And the 5th one is basically get the person to participate, right? The second question is, that's my 5 Ps. That's really how we build Jayo on. I think as far as celebrity, I do believe it helped us, especially with Jayo. I think working with Deepak has given us that 15 million audience we could just nurture Jayo with. Because really, Jayo is all about behavior change, right? It's a hard problem. We needed to start with somebody. Basically, we said we want unbounded positivity as being the theme of the platform. If I went to an investor and said, you know what, our goal is unbounded positivity. You go on Jayo, you're always going to find positivity. It doesn't matter what's happened in the world. They'll say, you know what, really not good enough. So that celebrity endorsement really helped. So I think we believe, so all are in the 10 facets of well-being, we have experts in each one of these areas. So Eddie Stern, yoga, he teaches Madonna. So that really helps us out because he's a curated. So today when you do Google search, you get the first 10 sponsored hits. Who do I really want to understand about sleep? So Rudy Tanzi about aging and Alzheimer's, he's an authority, or Dan Siegel on the brain. So that curation helps.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to happen. Right now, I mean, we have quite a few celebrities from athletes, Olympic athletes using the HeartMath technology. There's celebrities in Hollywood. The part of the problem right now is their agents. They all want a lot of money. You know, they're in terms of, I mean, we can get a quote, but then it's what do we do with it? That's PR. How do we create the PR that is really the kind of messaging we want? Because you still have to deliver the benefit, whatever your product is. And so, that's what we're looking right now, creating this Ad Heart movement and this give back, and it has to be in a context rather than just use my gadget. So I think it's quite a few champion celebrities that we have are really wanting to use their voice to really make a difference. And it's creating that messaging and the right timing that, to me, is the key.
And you know, you're a New York Times bestselling author, right? Are you willing to endorse any products here today? Are you available for? All right, good. Thank you very much to our panel. I know we have a lot more questions, but thank you very, very much.
Thank you.